Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, continuing on with my review of every NHL outdoor game to this point. And today, we're going to talk about the 19th outdoor game played in NHL history, or the 4th Heritage Classic. Now, this was also the 4th game in 2016, but it was the first outdoor game of 4 for the 2016-17 season. You know, it's getting confusing, right? Don't trust me. We're on point. But today, we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets hosting the Edmonton Oilers. So let's talk about it. All right. So the 2016 edition of the NHL Winter Heritage Classic was played on October 23rd, 2016 at Investors Group Field, which is home of the CFL's Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, this game, its origins trace back all the way to 2013, with this game being agreed to by the NHL for the Winnipeg Jets to host, with the intention of being played in the 2015-16 season. And the idea behind it being in the 15-16 season was to commemorate the Winnipeg Jets' 5 years in Winnipeg after relocating from Atlanta in 2011. Now, after the original Winnipeg Jets tucked tail and left town in 1996. But, as is with most football stadiums between the months of November and January, CFL or NFL, a scheduling conflict would push this game back. Well, with Winnipeg, or more specifically, Investors Group Field, hosting the 103rd Grey Cup in late November. The NHL wanted to play this game in early December. Obviously, the build-up, takedown, and build-up for the Heritage Classic timelines would not have coalesced. So with that, the announcement was made in January that it would be near impossible to host the Heritage Classic as they had originally had in mind. In March 2016, however, the game was announced as back on, with the timing of it being just right. Now, and the way this worked, the Blue Bombers would host their second last home game on October 8th and would be on a bye week for the weekend of the Heritage Classic, which gave the build crew 2 weeks to assemble the surface, which in the grand scheme of things is plenty of time. So attendance for this game came in at 33,240 spectators. So thus, at this point anyway, this makes it the lowest attended game of all the NHL outdoor games played up to this point. But despite what the numbers might say and what they look like, it's still, in the grand scheme of things, a sellout. So mission accomplished either way. Now, temperature at game time came in at 10 degrees Celsius, or 50 degrees Fahrenheit if you speak American. Now, in terms of the historical significance of this, aside from it being the current version of the Winnipeg Jets being back in Winnipeg for 5 seasons, if you remember the original Winnipeg Jets name, it is synonymous with the Edmonton Oilers, as well as both teams had played in the World Hockey Association from 1972 to 1979. And as a matter of fact, the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers both played in the last WHA game back in the 1979 WHA Avco World Championship game, when the Jets beat those Oilers for said championship. They're third in franchise history at this point. Now, as mentioned, these are not the same Jets, but the name and even the jersey, which we will get to, says otherwise. It's also worth pointing out, this is the first Heritage Classic in just over 2 years, meaning the NHL was getting a closer approach to scheduling the Heritage Classic. But I do imagine, scheduling the Heritage Classic is not nearly as easy as scheduling a Winter Classic or a Stadium Series game like it is in America, because there's only so many sports markets in Canada, and as a whole, it's tough when you only have 7 markets. I mean, you can go the way of neutral site games, which they have done, and they will do, but that's another topic for another video. But either way, let's talk rosters. So starting off with the Jets, and it's worth pointing out, this is their first outdoor game in team history, in Atlanta or in Winnipeg. It's their first. So a lot of the guys on this roster are very new to the experience of what an outdoor game truly feels like. But you do have some players who have been here before, as in Blake Wheeler, who played in the Winter Classic in 2010 as a Bruin, Dustin Byfuglien, who played in the Winter Classic in 2009 as a Blackhawk, and Drew Stafford, who played in the first Winter Classic in 2008 as a Buffalo Sabre. At this point, any experience in an outdoor game for these guys is probably a good thing. Now, Connor Hellebuck gets your start in net, and the Jets are coached in this time point in history by Paul Maurice. Now, as for their jerseys, the jerseys are pretty much a nice throwback to their WHA time. I mean, it's a little bit darker blue, but it's pretty much a carbon copy of what they wore then and even into their intro into the NHL. I mean, the collars are always nice, but it's pretty much a throwback at this point. Now let's talk the Oilers. Alright, so for the Edmonton Oilers, this is their second outdoor game in team history, having played in the inaugural 2003 Heritage Classic, along with the Montreal Canadiens. And again, like the Jets, a lot, if not all of this roster has never played in an outdoor game, save Zach Kassian, who played in the last Heritage Classic in 2014 as a Vancouver Canuck. So again, any outdoor experience at this point for this team is a good thing, right? Now, Cam Talbot gets your start in net, and the Edmonton Oilers at this point in time are coached by Todd McClellan. Now, as for their jerseys, for the Oilers jerseys, they just put a Heritage Classic decal on their arm from their previous season's third jerseys, which are, like the Jets jerseys, very WHA inspired. And I think that was the whole intent and purpose for these jerseys in the first place. But being with the scheduling conflict from the 15-16 season, the Oilers saw a good cash opportunity and released them a year prior. So, in terms of what I think the initial idea was, it's not a bad deal. I mean, you still have it as a third, and you have it as your Heritage Classic jersey. It's not a bad look, either way you look at it. Now, before we get rolling into everything here, it's worth pointing out this game was initially scheduled to start at 2 p.m., was pushed back 2 hours. That was due to the glare of the sunlight. But after that was all said and done and everybody was comfortable going on to ice after that, we got a game. So let's talk about it. So, if you've seen any of my previous outdoor game reviews on this channel, you'd know in previous outdoor games how these ones usually start out, with the first period usually having no scoring to speak of. Well, this is one of those games. In between both teams and their rounds of puck possession, amongst the hitting and the shots on net, and there were lots of good shots, I mean lots of good opportunities, Cam Talbot and Connor Hellebuck were doing what goalies do best, keeping the puck out. And it's not to say that the period was absent anything on the score sheet, as Milan Lucic would put the Jets on the power play when he would get called for roughing at 13:21. But as I mentioned, not much all going on in the first. So that was really the only thing I can tell you about the first period was one penalty, lots of shots, lots of hits. The Jets would outshoot the Oilers 10-8. So with the lack of offense, I want us to think this is going to be the tone of the game, right? But there's still 2 more periods to play. So let's talk about the second. Now, I can promise you one thing about the second period. We did have some scoring, but it wasn't immediate. It was still a complete goaltending clinic. And both teams were shooting more. So there's that. I mean, the effort was always there. It's just goalies. But our first mark on the score sheet, for the second period anyway, would come at 9:02 when Darnell Nurse would give the Jets the power play when he get called for cross-checking. But despite it being a Jets power play, it'd be the Oilers who would strike first, and only be 22 seconds after the penalty was called, as Mark Letestu would score shorthanded on his second of the season, unassisted, on a turnover from the Jets, which turned into an uncontested breakaway to give the Oilers the first goal of the game and the 1-0 lead at 9:24. So there is life in this puck after all. Now, after the Jets failed to make anything happen on that power play, they'd end up regretting it. Darnell Nurse, coming right out of the penalty box, put one behind Hellebuyck's right side for his first of the season from Connor McDavid and Zach Kassian for the 2-0 lead. That was 8 seconds after he exited the penalty box. And just like that, you could really feel the room deflate. Whether you're there in person, whether you're watching on TV, you felt it. You really did. So after some more good opportunities from both teams, we'd get one more before the end of the second period, as Zach Kassian would score his second on the season on a sweet point shot from a Jets turnover from Benoit Pouliot and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at 17-16 for the 3-0 Oilers lead. 3 unanswered goals in 8 minutes. Not good for the Jets. And, just for good measure, just to make sure that the score sheet read all Oilers up to this point, Andrej Sekera would give the Jets another power play as he would get called for interference at 18-13. And that's pretty much it for the second period. I mean, it seems all the Oilers needed was one good shot, and they got that, and they jumped all over it. I mean, to be fair, it could have been 4 or 5-0 by this point, but it's safe to say, though, that if the Jets plan on making a game out of this, they might want to stand up. Now, the Oilers would also outshoot the Jets 14-11. So they're outshooting them, and they're outscoring them. But at this point, credit is where credit is due. Cam Talbot, he's unbeatable at this point. So with that, on to the third. All right, so do you remember how the first period went? We just talked about it not even 5-6 minutes ago. Do you remember how the first period went? Think the exact same thing here. I mean, the third almost played out exactly like the first. Lots of hits, some good opportunities, but Hellebuyck decided now was as good a time as any to shut the door, while Talbot decided to keep the door shut. Now, Matthew Perreault would give the Oilers their first power play of the game when he got called for high sticking at 9:12. And not even a minute later and after that, the Oilers would have a 2-man advantage, as Tyler Myers would get called for interference at 10:17. But unfortunately for the Edmonton Oilers, they couldn't capitalize on any of it. And after some more back and forth, the Oilers would get the last penalty of the game, as Connor McDavid would get called for tripping at 17:53. But like all the power plays in this game, this did nothing to help the Jets. And that's how this game would end, with a 3-0 win for the Edmonton Oilers. Both teams tied at 10 shots apiece in the period, with the Oilers outshooting the Jets overall 32-31 in this game. And Cam Talbot becomes the third goalie in outdoor game history to record a shutout. But more importantly, this is the second shutout out of the 4 Heritage Classics played to this point. So, here's what I thought of the game. Honestly, first and foremost, and brutally honest, I expected more from the Jets. I mean, between Scheifele, Wheeler, Laine, even Byfuglien on defense, they were all non-factors. And at the same time, I was really surprised it was only 3-0. As I said before, it could have been 4 or 5-0 quite easily. But I mean, with some of those opportunities in this game, it's always hit and miss, right? I mean, the puck doesn't always have the lucky bounce for the Oilers like it normally does, but it could have been more. It could have been far more explosive. I mean, overall, it was an okay game. It wasn't bad. It's just okay. But, I was definitely expecting a lot more. I was hoping for a lot more. I mean, the hype in these outdoor games just to come out with a 3-0 win, and with the Oilers basically doing all their winning in this game in the second period, kind of let down. But at the same token, like I said, it was an okay game. I didn't mind watching it. Let me know your thoughts on the 2016 Heritage Classic. So that's another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, you've watched the entire video. So I think I'm entitled to that thumbs up. I mean, you're here. You're obviously digging what I'm doing. If you just want to say, hey, give me that thumbs up. Like I said, it goes a long way, a lot further than you might think. If you really want to help this out, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to. I know you want to. It'll make you feel good. It'll make me feel good. It'll make my algorithm feel even better. And like I said, we're very close to 300 right now. We're on our way to 500, hopefully by the end of the year. So let's help this guy out. Let's hit that red button. If you want to, there's that link in my description below. That'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to join that. I mean, it's absolutely free. And I would love to build an audience on there. I mean, it would give me more of an incentive to go on Facebook a lot more, right? Right. But anyway, for what I got in the future, I mean, as far as the outdoor games is concerned, like I said, this is the first one for the 16-17 season. There's at least 3 more behind this. So, be on the lookout for that. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be on the lookout for more videos from Trev. Later.